Please be seated. To begin our evening, a reading from Romans 12. I appeal to you, therefore, brothers and sisters, by the mercies of God, to present your bodies as a living sacrifice, holy and acceptable to God, which is your spiritual worship. Do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your minds, so that you may discern what is the will of God, what is good and acceptable and perfect. For by the grace given to me, I say to everyone among you not to think of yourself more highly than you ought to think, but to think with sober judgment, each according to the measure of faith that God has assigned. For as in one body we have many members, and not all members have the same function. So we who are many are one body in Christ, and individually we are members one of another. We have gifts that differ according to the grace given to us. Prophecy in proportion to faith, ministry in ministering, the teacher in teaching, the exhorter in exhortation, the giver in generosity, the leader in diligence, the compassionate in cheerfulness. Thanks be to God for this word to us. Let us pray. Tonight, God of life, we come into your presence with praise and thanksgiving for a history and legacy of ministry at Knox College. You are the source of all knowledge, all wisdom. You are the reason that we serve, the reason that we celebrate, the reason that we have hope for the future. Bless our remembering, bless our imagining, bless our fellowship. Renew us and transform this community so that every note of every song brings you honor, so our words testify to your grace, so that our laughter and applause symbolize the great joy with which we gather in the name of your Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Vice Provost Rowe, Director Hayes, Dr. Jane Dawson, members of the Knox Board of Governors, TST colleagues, Knox faculty, staff, graduates, and friends. Well, the time has come, the high point of the academic year. What an absolutely special time it is for so many gathered here, especially for you, our graduates, your families, and your friends. What a privilege it is for all of us to come together to honor this year's graduates and their achievements. For 173 years, Knox College has paid tribute to its graduates at an annual Convocation celebration, wishing them Godspeed, sending them forth with a blessing for the journey ahead. But no matter how often we have done this in the past, each year presents a new and exciting opportunity to acknowledge this moment as sacred time. My delightful duty is to welcome all of you to this evening, an evening that for all our students is the culmination of classes at Knox and online, papers, commuting, community worship, theological thinking and debate, very little time for play, and probably even less for sleep. Yet, in the midst of it all, moments of extraordinary grace as the Spirit of God has been doing a new thing within them. Graduates, how quickly it seems to happen. 1 minute we're welcoming you to the Knox community, and then so soon you're on your way, prepared for the next step in your journey of faith. But all such reflection is for another day. Tonight, your job is simply to be, to enjoy the moment, to celebrate your achievements in the company of all who have come to celebrate with you, especially your family and friends, to bask in their words of congratulations. My goodness, how proud we are of all of you. Family and friends, we welcome you, grateful for the part you have played in making this evening possible, and the part you will continue to play long after this evening is over. Faculty, sessional lecturers, field education supervisors have all gathered. A central part of your lives during your studies at Knox, they represent a tradition of learning, faith-seeking understanding that has been at the heart of the Reformed tradition since the beginning. We are also joined by faculty and deans and principals and presidents from other colleges of the Toronto School of Theology, by Professor Alan Hayes, director of the Toronto School of Theology, and from our wider circle of academic relationships at the University of Toronto, Professor Locke Rowe, Dean, School of Graduate Studies, and Vice Provost, Graduate Research and Education. From our partner colleges in the Toronto School of Theology, I would like to introduce them, and I'm going to get them to maybe raise their hand or their hat as I do. Beginning with Principal Stephen Andrews from Wycliffe College, Bishop Wayne Kirkpatrick from St. Augustine's, President Douglas Bloomberg from the Institute for Christian Studies, Dean Scott Lewis from Regis, Professor Michael Steinhauser from Trinity College, Professor Mario D'Souza from St. Michael's Faculty of Theology, and a double-barreled group, Professor Liu and McCarroll from Emmanuel College. We welcome all of you. Your presence is a symbol of the extended family, communities of faith and learning that deepen and enrich our work here at Knox. Former graduates of both Knox and Ewart College have also gathered, and in their presence we give thanks for their wisdom and their dedication. It is actually they who will surround you and guide you, our graduates, into the future. This year, as in every year, we have special anniversaries of our graduating classes of both Knox and Ewart. We gathered last night for dinner, and we heard some rollicking stories of their time at Ewart and Knox. This year, we celebrated those who graduated 25, 40, 50, 60 plus years ago. Our oldest graduate with us last night graduated in 1948, 69 years ago. All of them are examples of those who daily, weekly, year in and year out have lived and continue to live out their ministries within Canada and abroad. We welcome also the Reverend Dr. Hai Hyo, she's there in the back row, who with her husband, the Reverend Chun Hoi Hyo, is the formational officer of Sanjun Hall of Theology of the Korean Evangelical Holiness Church of America. Their Canadian students for ministry are prepared at Knox College through a partnership that we have with this denomination. You will probably, as you've been looking through the bulletin, notice the names on the inside of the front cover of a very important group of people, the Knox College Board of Governors. Appointed by the Presbyterian Church in Canada, they exercise the sacred trust of shared governance. You will find many of them up in the back row, and Dr. Peter Ross, the convener, here in the front. And we do thank them for their dedication to the mission of the college and their wise decision-making in planning for its future. Before closing, there is one more group that I would like to name, the Knox College staff. A number of them are here. I'm just going to get them to wave their hands. They're too shy to do it. Those who carry out the work of academic administration, finance, fundraising, library services, recruitment, building maintenance, etc. Without them, without their efforts, this evening would not have such attention to detail. Their careful work undergirds all we do. A few words of thanks also to those who remain somewhat invisible. But without them, we would not be able to support the high quality of teaching and learning that takes place at Knox. These are our donors, those who generously support our work year in and year out, who have contributed to our capital campaign, enabling us to install interactive classrooms, a lift to the chapel, hire a new faculty member, and bring us within a heartbeat of endowing a faculty chair in pastoral theology. This year, Knox provided almost $400,000 in bursaries, prizes, and scholarships. Again, thanks to those who in the past and in the present continue to recognize the importance of well-prepared and creative leaders for church and society. So, graduates, everything is in place. Everyone is here. The moment has arrived. How good it is to honor you and to give thanks to God for you and the time you have spent in our midst. I trust all of you have had time to look at the Convocation folder with its information on our graduates starting on page 11, on the work of the college starting on page 19. I will leave it up to you to read about them and about us. But there's just one final thing without which no Presbyterian, authentic Presbyterian gathering is complete without, not surprisingly, an announcement. All of you are cordially invited to a reception afterwards at Knox. On the back page of the folder, you will find information on how to get as directly as possible to your favorite graduate. Vice Provost Rowe, it is good to welcome you to our 173rd Convocation, to have you celebrate with us the success of our students, and particularly to join with me in conferring our academic degrees. I invite you at this time to bring greetings from the University of Toronto.
Principal Gordon, Dr. Hayes, Reverend Travis, Reverend McDonald, Dr. Dawson, distinguished faculty, members of the Board of Governors, members of the graduating class of 2017, and ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of Chancellor Wilson, I am honored to attend Knox College's 173rd Convocation ceremony, and to do so as the representative of the University of Toronto. I'd also like to extend special greetings to Reverend Carr, Reverend Horst, and Reverend Wells to offer congratulations on the honor bestowed to them today. I'm especially pleased to have the opportunity to extend congratulations to members of this year's graduating class, who are receiving degrees earned conjointly through Knox College and the University of Toronto. As you know, the university is one of the society's most crucial institutions, originating in its modern form during the Middle Ages. And drawing upon this lineage, the University of Toronto is proud to continue hosting a robust dialogue between theology and its faculties of arts and science, medicine, and law. In this, we recognize the continuing importance of the role of theology in higher education. And for this reason, I am honored to help celebrate the work of Knox College in advancing this venerable academic discipline in the context of our modern world. Your contribution is valuable, not only to the people of faith, but to the University of Toronto, to the wider academic community, and to society as a whole. So I'm proud to represent the university that honors and maintains its practices and its traditions, not the least through the conferring of these conjoint degrees, approved by Knox, U of T, and TST. So to everyone graduating and being honored today, on behalf of the University of Toronto, I say again, congratulations on reaching this day and on the years of hard work and perseverance it represents. I wish you all success and happiness in the next chapters of your life. And thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
I'm sure you've already glanced at the list of prizes and the students who have won them. These prizes demand that students demonstrate academic excellence and/or excellence in the practice of ministry. We really want you to see how gifted our students are, and tonight celebrate with us their success. But at this time, we also celebrate and honor one student who throughout their program of study exhibited excellence in all subjects over all years of study. This year's recipient managed this achievement working full-time as an engineer and balancing family life. Her overall average in the MDiv program was 86.11%. I would invite you to please join with me in congratulating this year's gold medal winner, Megan Patterson.
Vice Provost, Director, Principal, graduands, ladies and gentlemen. It is my responsibility and privilege this evening of introducing our Convocation speaker. As this year marks the commemoration of the 500th anniversary of the European Protestant Reformation, it seemed obvious that we should invite Professor Jane Dawson, one of the preeminent scholars of the Scottish Reformation, to address this convocation. Jane Dawson is the John Lang Professor of Reformation History at New College, the School of Divinity at the University of Edinburgh. New College is very much our sister college with a free church heritage connected both to the church, in this case the Church of Scotland, and the University of Edinburgh. Our understanding of the Scottish Reformation has been enlivened and transformed over the last generation, and Professor Dawson has played a key role in the development of this field through the graduate students she has supervised, her numerous articles, her important books, and her contribution to the digital humanities. Her books include Scotland Reformed 1488 to 1587, the crucial volume on the 16th century in the New Edinburgh History of Scotland, and more recently, the production of a biography of Scotland's most famous, and yes, sometimes infamous, reformer, John Knox. This definitive, yet highly readable biography has given Scottish historians what we have longed for, a modern scholarly biography of Knox. Another remarkable contribution has been her work with a group of scholars on singing at the time of the Reformation, in particular work on the wood psalter. This project has involved not only publications, but recordings and even an iPhone app. Professor Dawson was also involved in the recent recreation of a 16th century worship service in St. Mary's in Haddington, done in order to get the feel of what a worship service in that period would be like. Scholarship, but with a purpose to help all of us understand better our heritage and how it has shaped us. I am delighted to introduce Professor Jane Dawson and invite her to address the convocation.
Many thanks for such a very generous introduction, and most important, for this invitation to address the convocation, the 173rd convocation of Knox College. And having bowed to my academic colleagues, I wish to thank the graduates, because without you, none of us would be here. And that means I've had a marvelous trip across to Canada. I am being entertained marvelously, and I've had a lovely day. And I hope that will be also true of you today. This is your day, and I hope it is marvelous and you enjoy every moment of it. I also, of course, as has been pointed out, come in some senses to represent and to mark an anniversary. The 500th year since 1517, when the German reformer Martin Luther posted the 95 Theses and started what we call the Protestant Reformation. This morning in a workshop, we were looking at one aspect of that Protestant Reformation, the Reformation that happened in Scotland, looking at the challenges of that period and seeing if some of those challenges and some of those problems and solutions were relevant today. And it also reminds us, as that introduction has told you, that I come from a sister theological college. I found out that in fact Knox College is older than New College by 2 years. So I come from the junior sibling in Edinburgh to here at Knox College in Toronto. We are close siblings in a wide Presbyterian tradition and family that spreads right across the world. And the students in Knox reflect some of that width of the Presbyterian tradition and of that great family. We also share Edinburgh and Knox College, not just an origin at roughly the same time, though perhaps one can say that at least theology was taught from the very start of the University of Edinburgh in 1583. It's rather nice in the University of Edinburgh to remind one's other colleagues that it was actually all about theology at the start. We share many things with Knox College here, partly the great buildings. The buildings of Knox College look very similar to the buildings in New College, Edinburgh. The way the 19th century showed off its glory through its architecture. We also share people. When it was known by one of my colleagues that I was coming to Knox College, he immediately said, "But that's, of course, where that most famous professor of New Testament of the start of the 20th century first taught here at Knox College, Harry Angus Alexander Kennedy," a marvellous long good Scots name, was professor in 1905 at Knox College and then came to New College in Edinburgh in 1909. He was one of the most important New Testament and Greek scholars of his period. Today, we also share people. I am sharing this platform with Dr. Harold Wells, who came to New College and took his master's degree there and is now receiving an honorary degree here in Knox today. We also, of course, share the legacy of John Knox himself, who died in 1572, so that takes us back quite a long way. Very obviously, Knox College has the name. New College does not have the name, but we have a statue. We have a statue, a very large statue, which sits in our quad, and I'm afraid I refer to him because I have to walk past him every day to work as the wee man in the quad. Much more recently, we have also acquired in New College to hang on our walls an oil painting of John Knox. This had been in the University of Edinburgh's Art Collections storeroom. It was there because it was thought to be a very late copy. But when it was cleaned for conservation, it was discovered to be probably the end of the 16th century. That means it's the earliest surviving painting of Knox and probably, possibly, the best actual likeness. And earlier today, it was my great pleasure to bring a copy of that portrait to hang in Knox College as a gift and a recognition of our shared heritage from New College, Edinburgh. I know a bit about that portrait because I pinched it for the dust jacket of my book. And in some ways, it's because Knox has been hanging around my life for 40 years. And I sometimes say I wrote a biography of Knox in order to get him out of my life. this has not worked. When I was looking at the Knox College website, I saw a tab at the top there which said, Life After Knox. And I thought, this is it. This is how I do it. And in fact, today, I've been learning from former graduates at the lunches and the dinners and in conversation about what life after Knox is like. And it sounds great. And I've also learnt that life with Knox or life at Knox, at least life at Knox College, is not bad at all. It's easy to joke about Knox and to use that wordplay. Why is Knox a name to be proud of? And why was Knox College given that name? I can give you a good historical reason because, of course, when Knox College was founded in 1844, this was the height of interest in Knox, certainly in Scotland, and he was being represented as the essence of Presbyterianism. It was the same year that the massive 6 volumes of his works started being published in Scotland. And they helped to cement the 19th century view of Knox as the great reformer. The 19th century loved the great anything, so you needed a great reformer in Scotland. This had started by the publication of the original biography of Knox, the original scholarly biography by Macri, and this had provoked a range of interest in Scotland so that they started to erect statues. First of all, in Glasgow, there is a statue on a very high column which looks out across the whole city and can be seen from most parts of Glasgow. And it presents the sort of view of Knox and the Scottish Reformation that was prevalent at the time. On that statue, there is a long inscription. Part of it talks about the way Knox and Scotland and Britain and the British Empire were all benefits of that Scottish Reformation. As it writes, the Reformation produced a revolution in the sentiment of mankind, the greatest as well as the most beneficial that has happened since the publication of Christianity. They never went in for small claims in the mid-19th century. When we are marking the 500th year of the Protestant Reformation in 2017, we are a bit less bombastic and tend to be looking at a very mixed legacy rather than claiming that all the benefits have come from the Reformation, particularly in Scotland. Knox was also seen as a hero at this time. The great literary author Thomas Carlyle wrote a book on heroes, and he picked Knox as the hero. In that 19th century expression, he called him one Scotchman to whom of all others his country and the world owe a debt. Now, the trouble with hero-making and triumphalism is it produces a reaction. In Scotland, at least, in the 20th century, Knox had a very different reputation. He became the wrong kind of Scottish identity. He became the worst sort, in their view, of Presbyterianism, a destroyer of culture, a hater of women, dour, repressed, and all the things that Scots in the 20th century, particularly the middle of the 20th century, felt they needed to escape from. We recognize these things, both the pro and the anti-Knox positions, as myths which are important, but we don't necessarily have to take on board. So we can move back to today. Have Knox College and John Knox got anything in common if we look at it today? One of the most obvious things is, of course, ministry. The vocation as a minister and as a preacher. This is something John Knox the man was very clear that he had to prove to the world, but also to himself. He relates his call to the ministry, not his conversion, but his call, and he phrases it in terms of three calls. He quite deliberately echoes the three calls to St. Peter. He also uses the word shepherd and the imagery of being a shepherd of the sheep a great deal in his works. And he very much feels that preaching is the key to his vocation. One of the nice things that I was able to do in writing my recent biography was to use some material that I had found, new material about Knox, which gave us an insight into what he was like as a man, his personal thoughts, what he wrote to his close friend and ministerial colleague, so he didn't have to pretend to that close friend. And he wrote at one point, "I dare not cast off that burden that God hath laid upon me to preach to unthankful, yea, alas, miserable Scotland." That always gets a big laugh in Scotland. But preach he did. And yet, we know in some ways quite little about his sermons, because only one entire sermon has survived and been published. He did not write them down. He preached them. But what we do know is the effect of his sermons upon the hearers. Many of you have probably heard about his most famous sermon on the text of the cleansing of the temple in 1559, which provoked an iconoclastic riot in the city of Perth and started what we call the Scottish Protestant Reformation. But like a good preacher, he'd found a very good sermon, so he preached it again. And he preached it in St. Andrews with exactly the same effect. So we know that he could incite people to action with his sermons. Interestingly enough, the most direct impact on political events was probably his sermons as an army chaplain. He went with the troops who were fighting that wars of the Congregation at the start of the Scottish Protestant Reformation, and they were being defeated. And it was Knox's sermons that stopped those soldiers, many of them amateurs, from leaving the army and going back home. So he made defeated troops fight again, and that is a considerable effect. One of his most moving sermons was to allegedly 3,000 people after the death of Regent Murray, the assassination of Regent Murray, and we hear that he reduced them all to tears. A different effect was felt by a young teenage boy, James Melville, who was the nephew of the more famous Andrew Melville, who as a teenager heard Knox in the last year of his life, when he had to be lifted into the pulpit, get so animated when he was preaching on the book of Daniel that the poor young James shook with fear and his hand could not write any notes because he was so scared. Now that's a wide range of effects from one preacher. And Knox also saw himself and his preaching as prophecy. Knox was sure that he understood what he called the sense of Scripture. And to us, he appeared to play fast and loose with the scriptural text at some times, creating composite texts, something which wouldn't have got you through your biblical exam at Knox at all. He also saw himself as a lone prophet. This was his self-image. A lone prophet like the prophets of the Old Testament. He saw himself as Ezekiel and the watchman of the Lord, and he talked about blowing his trumpet. He saw himself on the margins. He saw himself persecuted like Jeremiah, and when he was particularly down, he saw himself like Elijah, complaining that he was all alone fighting God's cause. And he ought to have got the same answer as Elijah got, to stop it, because he wasn't. And the most important thing, actually, that self-image has disguised over the years is that Knox most definitely was not alone. He had support networks, and he could not have functioned in his ministry without their spiritual, emotional, and also financial and material support. Most of those supporters were his sisters, as he called them, were women. He was not a woman hater, though he did, of course, write that marvelously titled book, The First Blast of the Trumpet Against the Monstrous Regiment of Women. That's about the most exciting bit of the book. He was also supported by his brothers, and not only all those he regarded as part of the faithful, but particularly his fellow ministers. And he actually spent much of his ministry in what we would call a team ministry. The friend he wrote to in his final years was a man called Christopher Goodman, and they were the dream team who led the English-speaking exile congregation in Geneva and produced so many things, which we'll come on to in a minute. But his team ministry, Knox needed somebody else. And when he was in Edinburgh, he was given the great luxury of having an assistant minister to work alongside him, John Craig. Much of John Knox's best work was in team and in committee. the famous documents of the Scottish Reformation are committee documents. The first book of discipline, the famous 6 Johns, was very helpful if your name was John at that point. Most of the ministers you seem to come across are all called John at that period. First book of discipline, the Confession of Faith, the Psalm book, the Geneva Bible, and other liturgical services for the fasts and for excommunication. All of these were written jointly and in teams. These are the things that have lasted longest and are still useful today. Now, when you think about those team ministries of Knox and his colleagues, and you think of today's Knox College, that's when it starts to sound similar. Because what you see here is working together as part of a community. At the reunions today, graduates from the past have been telling me what Knox meant to them. Being part of a close-knit community is very important. You don't have to agree on everything, but you have to learn to live and work together. So to try and answer that first question, which is the title of this convocation address, is John Knox a name to be proud of? From what I've seen and heard of Knox College, that is most definitely a name to be proud of, and I hope you are today and for the rest of your careers. John Knox himself and perhaps Martin Luther, they are both men of their times, and there are aspects of those times and their lives and legacies which we ought to and should be willing to reject. We do not wish to be associated with, for example, the anti-Semitism of Martin Luther, nor with John Knox's virulent anti-Catholicism. But we do have to recognize that these men transformed their church and their countries, and remind us that reformation and reforming is an ongoing process. But we also ought to be remembering that you don't have to be famous, you don't have to have a statue to leave a lasting legacy. And I want to tell you about a friend of John Knox very briefly, a man called William Keith. He was a fellow Scot, and he was a member of that English-speaking exile congregation in Geneva, and one of his jobs was to help with producing the Psalms, the metrical Psalms, and the Psalm book. That congregation, in 2 years flat, produced a new complete translation of the Bible, the so-called Geneva Bible, a new order of worship, which becomes the Book of Common Order, a new Psalm book, and all these essential tools were carried to Scotland and into the great Presbyterian tradition. But William Keith worked on the metrical Psalm version of Psalm 100. We know his metrical version by its first line, "All people that on earth do dwell." We know his tune as the Old Hundredth. And that tune also has carried through many of the great European composers and comes down to us this day. we still sing the same tune. And I'll be asking you shortly to sing that tune together today. As you sing that tune and those words, be proud of Knox College, what you have shared and what you will take into the world. Remember that however small you think your contribution might be, it might be the thing, like William Keith, that makes that difference and is part of a much longer and greater legacy. So when you sing his words and his tune, remember William Keith and his friend John Knox and Martin Luther, and be proud of the good parts of their legacy. But if you look at the words, remember to sing to the Lord with cheerful voice, because everyone singing together creates the unified whole. So would you like to rise and let us sing, All People That on Earth Do Dwell?
Thank you. Knox College has committed to preparing the faithful and creative laity for 15 years by offering lay education program online. Online lay education programs are the certificates in Christian faith and life 1 and 2. Each program requires the completion of 8 courses. Each course takes 6 weeks to complete. Principal Gordon, Vice Provost Rowe, Director Hayes. I present 4 lay graduates for certificates. However, due to far distance, graduates were not able to attend the graduation ceremony tonight. Certificate in Christian Faith and Life 1, Steve Clifford Cassidy, in absentia. Isvan Parkers, in absentia. Trace Hill, in absentia. Certificate in Christian Faith and Life 2, Anne Stewart Daly, in absentia.
Vice Provost, Director, Principal, graduands, families, and friends of graduands, ladies and gentlemen, chers amis. The conferring of academic degrees at Knox College represents the culmination of the academic year and the recognition that our students have successfully completed programs of theological study lasting 1, 2, 3, or more years. Those receiving degrees and diplomas and certificates tonight have been approved for graduation by the faculty and by the governing board of Knox College. We begin tonight with the Master of Divinity degree. This is the largest degree program at Knox College and involves 3 years of full-time study or equivalent, conferred conjointly with the University of Toronto. The Master of Divinity is the degree required for ordination in the Presbyterian Church in Canada, as well as in many other denominations. It is the program which prepares students for ordained Christian leadership in a variety of ministry contexts, and especially for congregational ministry. The Master of Divinity degree prepares people to be learned disciples of Jesus Christ and visionary leaders of faith communities. Tonight, 11 students are being presented for the Master of Divinity degree. All 11 of these graduates have been candidates for ordained ministry and will also receive at the same time the diploma of the college or the General Assembly certificate, which attests to their suitability and fitness for ministry within the Presbyterian Church in Canada. I now invite the students receiving this degree to stand. Principal Gordon, I present to you the candidates for the degree Master of Divinity.
Ego peractoritatem mihi permissum a concilio gubernatori collegii Knoxiani et Universitatis Torontonensis admitto vos in gradum magistri divinitatis.
Sang Min Lydia Bay, Bachelor of Arts for the degree Master of Divinity and the diploma of the college. Seaton Neil Brockmeyer, Bachelor of Social Work for the degree Master of Divinity and the diploma of the college. Sharmila Pearl Ireland, Bachelor of Arts for the degree Master of Divinity and the diploma of the college. Bong Chan Ko, Bachelor of Commerce for the degree Master of Divinity and the diploma of the college. Stephen Kwan, Bachelor of Science for the degree Master of Divinity and the diploma of the college. Anna Hai-Young Lee, Bachelor of Law for the degree Master of Divinity and the diploma of the college. Julio Cesar Miranda, Bachelor of Economics, Master of Economics and Business, Master of Public Administration for the degree Master of Divinity and the diploma of the college. Megan Rose Patterson, Bachelor of Science, Master of Theological Studies for the degree Master of Divinity and the diploma of the college. Noelle Ramsey, Bachelor of Arts Honors, Bachelor of Education for the degree Master of Divinity and the diploma of the college. Patricia Dawn Archibald, registered psychotherapist for the degree Master of Divinity and the General Assembly certificate. Janice Geraldine Doyle for the degree Master of Divinity and the General Assembly certificate. The Special General Assembly Certificate is awarded to those who have completed a course of study assigned by the General Assembly of the Presbyterian Church in Canada through its Committee on Education and Reception. Such course of study is typically assigned to graduates of other theological colleges and/or ordained ministers being received from other denominations. To receive the Special General Assembly certificate, such students must complete at least the equivalent of 1 year of studies at Knox College, courses which include Presbyterian and Reformed distinctives in theology, in liturgy, in ecclesiology, in sacraments, history, and church government. Tonight, we recognize 2 such students and 4 additional students who completed denominational requirements less than 1 year. The candidates for the Special General Assembly certificate will please stand. Diane E. Boyd, Bachelor of Arts, Master of Divinity for the Special General Assembly certificate. Nancy Mostert, Certificate in Christian Studies, Diploma in Ministry for the Special General Assembly certificate. And we recognize tonight the following 4 persons for completion of denominational requirements. If they are here, we invite them to stand. Robert John Dean. Pamela Carlson Hohenwoning. Jonathan Hope Hong. And Yu Suk Lee. I would now invite those who've graduated with the degree Master of Divinity, the diploma of the college, the General Assembly certificate, and the Special General Assembly certificate, all to stand and to be recognized by Convocation, the class of 2017.
Knox College also offers Master of Theological Studies program. MTS as a two-year degree program allows concentration in Bible theology, church history, or pastoral studies. This program can be taken for general interest or as preparation for further graduate studies. Vice Provost Rowe, Director Hayes, Principal Gordon, I present to you 3 candidates for the degree of Master of Theological Studies.
Ego peractoritatem mihi permissam a concilio gubernatora collegii Knoxiani et Universitatis Torontonensis admitto vos in gradum magistri studiarum theologia.
Diane E. Boyd, Bachelor of Art and Master of Divinity for the degree of Master of Theological Studies. Scott Kenneth Singleton, Bachelor of Science, for the Director of Master of Theological Studies.
Admitto in absentia.
James Jun Che Young, Bachelor of Art and Master of Divinity, for the degree of Master of Theological Studies. MTS degree graduates, please rise and turn around to receive the congratulations.
Principal Gordon, Vice Provost Rowe, Director Hayes. It is my great pleasure to present the candidates for advanced degrees. I invite the candidates to stand. I present the candidate for the degree of Master of Theology.
Ego peractoritatem mihi permissam a concilio gubernatorum collegii Knoxiani et Universitatis Torontonensis admitto te in gradum magistri theologiae.
Stephen Mutaja, Bachelor of Arts, Honors, Master of Divinity, his thesis title, God and the Problem of Evil, a Reformed Analytic Inquiry. Principal Gordon, I present the candidates for the degree of Doctor of Ministry.
Ego peractoritatem mihi permissam a concilio gubernatorum collegii Knoxiani et Universitatis Torontonensis admitto vos in gradum doctoris ministri.
Mona Scrivens, Bachelor of Arts, Master of Theological Studies, LCCE, Master of Divinity. Her thesis title, Spiritual Expectations and Experience of Women with Newborns. Heather Jane Weiss, Bachelor of Arts, Master of Divinity, her thesis title, Beyond Cordiality, Interpreting Practices of Mutual Hospitality Towards Building Interculturally Competent Community at Thornhill Presbyterian Church.
Supervisor.
And I would invite, again, the recipients of advanced degrees to stand to receive our recognition. At this time, I would also like to recognize those Knox College students who have completed a PhD that was awarded at the University of St. Michael's College last November. Hyun Kyai Ju, thesis title, The God of Compassion at Mount Sinai, a literary and theological interpretation of the Sinai pericope in Exodus 19. And Jai Yang Lim, thesis title, Homiletics of Communal Participation in the Spirit for the Contemporary Church.
Principal Gordon, Vice Provost Rowe, Director Hayes, colleagues, graduates, honored guests. It is my privilege to present to you this evening the Reverend Dr. John Crosby Carr for the degree of Doctor of Divinity on horis causa.
Ego peractoritatem mihi permissam a concilio gubernatorum collegii Knoxiani admitto te in gradum doctoris divinitatis honoris causa.
Thank you. Throughout his life, the Reverend Dr. Carr has demonstrated his great love and commitment to the church, the academy, and to the care of people. Following his graduation from Knox with a Certificate of Theology and a Bachelor's of Theology in 1962, he entered into a decade of service as a parish minister in the Presbyterian Church in Canada. Following this, his interest in pastoral counseling and psychotherapy led him to enter into this new field of ministry, both as a practitioner and an academic, completing a Master's of Theology at Princeton Theological Seminary and a Doctor of Philosophy at Northwestern University and Garrett Evangelical Theological Seminary in the area of pastoral psychology and counseling. He completed his residency in 1975 and received his Doctor of Philosophy in 1980. In 1975, the Reverend Carr became the Executive Director of the Pastoral Institute in Edmundston, where he served until 1989, and then he left to become the Visiting Fellow at the Campbell Centre for Counselling and Human Resources in New Zealand. Additionally, he has served as the coordinator of pastoral and spiritual care in the Alberta Hospital from 1993 until 2001. While serving in both of these positions, the Reverend Dr. Carr taught at St. Stephen's College in Edmonton, Alberta, from 1975 until just last year, 2016. He served not only as a teacher, but he was on the founding committee of their Doctor of Ministry program and taught in that program. At that time, one of the only 2 Canadian Doctor of Ministry programs that existed. He also, in 1999, helped establish and taught in the St. Stephen's Master of Psychotherapy and Spirituality program. As a registered clinical psychologist in the province of Alberta, he also established an active practice in pastoral care and counseling. In 2014, John received an Award of Excellence in Pastoral Care and Pastoral Care Education from the Canadian Association of Spiritual Care. Additionally, he has taught at Loma Linda University and internationally in India. In the 1970s, he co-authored and edited a book entitled The Organization and Administration of Pastoral Care Centers. He tells me that's a unique book. No one has written anything like it since. And so we value that. He has also published many articles in academic journals and served as the president of the Board of Management of the Journal of Pastoral Care. In addition to all these career and professional contributions, John has continued to demonstrate his love of the church through service in his local church at Dayspring Presbyterian Church. He has served both as moderator of the Edmonton Lakeland Presbytery as well as the Synod of Alberta and the Northwest. He has also served as interim moderator of congregations in his presbytery from 1975 until 2005 and survived. Additionally, he has contributed greatly to the work of the National Church by serving on the Doctrines Committee and has actively guided the church through his contribution in such areas as gender diversity. Through all of his life, he has actively demonstrated the care of people, his sensitivity to their needs and to those who are suffering from issues of poverty, mental health, gender identity, and troubled relationships, has led him to respond directly to their support and as well equip others to respond through his teaching, writing, leadership, and example. It is with great pleasure that I present to you the Reverend John Crosby Carr for the degree Doctor of Divinity on Horis Causa.
Principal Gordon, it is my privilege to present the Reverend Karen Horst, Bachelor of Arts, Master of Religious Education, Master of Divinity for the degree Doctor of Divinity honoris causa.
Ego per autoritatem mihi permissam a concilio gubernatorum collegii Knoxiani admitto te in gradum, doctoris divinitatis honoris causa.
The Reverend Karen Horst has had a distinguished career as a Christian educator, as a congregational minister, and as a denominational leader. She is a graduate of Ewart College and thus an alum of this college, the University of Toronto, and McMaster Divinity College. She has worked as an area educational consultant and ecumenical curriculum designer and writer, and served in parish ministry in 5 congregations. Currently, since 2009, she is senior minister of St. Andrew's Presbyterian Church in Orillia, Ontario, where, I should say, she has among her congregants the parents of 2 faculty members, Stuart MacDonald's parents and my father. Speaking only for myself, of course, I would say that having to put up with the likes of avissers in the congregation is itself alone worth an honorary doctorate. Karen is an effective, respected, and loved minister whose leadership extends well beyond the bounds of the local congregation. For 6 years, she served as convener of the Presbyterian World Service and Development Agency, during which time she was involved in 3 monitoring tours in Africa. She was chair of the committee to combine the programs of Ewart College and Knox College, a very significant and important contribution. She has served the church in mission education, working with candidates for ministry in church camping, the Women's Missionary Society, and in international ministries. The Reverend Karen Horst has also been active in community service with local food banks and other agencies in the cities of the congregations where she has ministered. And in 2015, Karen Horst was elected as moderator of the 141st General Assembly of the Presbyterian Church in Canada, an office she held with passion and distinction from June 2015 to June 2016. The letters of nomination by those who supported Karen in recommending her describe her as someone who exemplifies the vision of Knox College: faith matters. She is, and I quote, an effective leader with a keen intuition that allows her to meet challenges with grace, love, and humor. Karen's openness, creativity, and genuine love of people are evident in her role in pastoral leadership. Others use the words innovative, wise, and compassionate to describe Karen and her ministry. Among Karen's activities is involvement in an annual motorcycle ride together with her husband, the Reverend Dr. Rick Horst, and a group affectionately known as the Holy Rollers, who raise thousands of dollars each year for relief and development. One nominator said that mission is at the heart of everything Karen does, even riding her motorcycle. She has a deep faith in Jesus Christ and encourages those she feels blessed to meet and serve with. Allow me to conclude, if I may, with a personal word tonight. It is a deep privilege and honor for me to present Karen tonight. We first met some 40 years ago at a Synod Camp leadership event at Crieff Hills Community. And 2 years ago, when my mother became ill with the cancer that quickly took her life, Karen was her minister. And I will always be grateful for her ministry to my mother and to our family during those very difficult days and since. Principal Gordon, for all these reasons and so many more, I present the Reverend Karen Horst that you may confer upon her the degree Doctor of Divinity, honoris causa.
Principal Gordon, Director Hayes, Vice Provost. It is my pleasure and honor to present to you the Reverend Professor Dr. Harold George Wells for the degree Doctor of Divinity, honoris causa.
Ego peractoritatem mihi permissem a concilio gubernatorum collegii Knoxiani admitto te in gradum doctoris divinitatis honoris causa.
First, I need to say something personal. When I came to Knox College in 2002, Professor Wells was one of the senior faculty in the theology department that welcomed me warmly. His experience teaching in Lesotho and my own origins in Africa and interest in contextual and particularly African contextual theologies immediately created a warm space of mutual academic interest. However, Professor Wells became more than that for me, as he soon proved to be a kind, supportive mentor through my process of easing into the Toronto School of Theology and an invaluable support through the process of writing and publishing my first book. This mentor quality is also true of his work in his doctoral supervision. I'm aware of at least 2 people sitting on this podium who graduated under the supervision of, is that 2? Is there anybody else? Well, I'm counting you, Pam, but there might be more people here that Harold worked with in his tremendously fruitful work in tutoring and mentoring students through doctoral study. Through his open-hearted counsel and wise advice, he has made a profound contribution to the Presbyterian Church in Canada and Knox College in his mentorship of many students that went on to become professors all over the world, and including here at Knox College. Professor Wells has an illustrious career of publishing and teaching that is second to none. However, it is this added quality of being a mentor and a friend to colleagues and students that makes him stand out even more as an exceptional candidate for the degree Divinity honoris causa. In North American versions of the study of systematic theology, we often live in a European captivity. Even our North American theologians need to prove their mettle by citing European scholars and by showing that they can engage the debates framed by Europe. Eurocentrism reigns. Professor Wells, with his work on Paul Ricoeur and his expertise in Moltmann, 2 of the great 20th and 21st century voices in Reformed theology, does not stand back for anyone in engaging these debates. However, what sets him apart in the Toronto and set him apart in his work in the Toronto School of Theology was his ability to engage these authors while taking seriously the post-colonial critiques and the massive and important growth of theologies from the majority world. Moreover, he brought this insight home in his important engagement together with Gregory Baum, Douglas Hall, and other critical Canadian theologians in his socio-political engagement. His time teaching in Lesotho certainly proved crucial in his understanding just how profound the global explosion of the Christian movement has become and how important the vibrant growth of Christian faith in new cultural contexts is today. He did not stop there, however, for he also developed a keen interest in the rise of Asian theologies, in the contribution of Minjung theology and the contribution of Latin American liberation theology. Reading through the list of his PhD and THD supervisees, we see a profound ability to bring these many perspectives in conversation. And I still believe that his book, The Christic Center, written later in his career, is the best contemporary introduction to systematic theology and to theology in general in our Canadian context. And for that reason, I begged the Crux bookstore when the book went out of print to buy all the leftover stock from Orbis Books, so you can still find it there. Professor Wells is not only a superb, broad-thinking theologian, he has also shown himself to be a theologian of and for the Christian Church, and particularly for the United Church of Canada. His CV shows the profound contribution he has made to the formation of the United Church theology in terms of the use of language for God in the conversations, interfaith conversations, and ecumenical conversations, for instance, on the baptismal formula. And he also works specifically on interfaith relationships and has also contributed very strongly to the United Church's conversations about the LGBTQ community and their inclusion. And very important today is also his ongoing and committed activism for the good of the earth in his eco-theological vision for the healing of creation. Throughout his career, Professor Wells taught Sunday school, conducted catechism classes for new teenage members, and facilitated Bible studies and ecological study groups, and he still hosts an ecological study group in Burlington, Ontario. When his home congregation went through a process of becoming or looking to become an affirming congregation in the United Church, he played a key role as an ally and advocate. He does not only stand before us as the author of several books, numerous peer-reviewed articles, and a participant in a large number of public speaking invitations from around the world. More importantly, he stands among us as a man of profound and committed Christian faith, demonstrating the best of bringing together the traditions of Christian faith and its contextualization in our current world. The degree Doctor of Divinity honoris causa at Knox College has 6 criteria for the award. These include effective pastoral leadership, scholarly contribution to the church and academia, and creative leadership in church and society. It is clear that Professor Wells fulfills all these criteria with faithful, loving energy and humility. Principal Gordon, it is my privilege to present to you the Reverend Professor Harold Wells for the degree Doctor of Divinity honoris causa.
You'll be delighted to know I'm the last speaker. Vice Provost Rowe, Director Hayes, Principal Gordon, Dr. Dawson, graduates, people of Knox College, and friends of Knox College. I am the chair of the Knox College Board of Governors, and I welcome this opportunity to speak for a few minutes as an admirer about a good friend of mine, the Reverend Dr. Dorcas Gordon, who is leaving Knox after 18 years. She's going on sabbatical, and then after that, she is free. I have worked with Dorcas as a board member for 12 years and as chair for 6. So you will understand this is a bittersweet moment for us on the board. But first, on behalf of the Board of Governors, let me congratulate all of you for achieving this milestone of your academic life, and let me wish you Godspeed in the next step of this journey that you have begun. We also recognize all the parents, partners, and other supporters who have provided encouragement and assistance on this journey. Then there are our 3 honorary Doctors of Divinity. To you also, congratulations. This is a great day. For the board, this is the highlight of this year, Convocation. Just think, it has taken you 3 or 5 years to earn your way out of Knox. But consider poor Dr. Gordon. It has taken her 18 years, and finally she's made it to Convocation. What were you doing on Canada Day, July 1st, 1999? Just think back to then. That was 18 years ago. Much has happened in the last 18 years. Just think of your life, the decisions, the hopes, the ups and the downs, the accomplishments, and what has brought you to be here today. Well, on that day, July 1st, 1999, the Reverend Dr. Dorcas Gordon became principal of Knox. It was a well-respected seminary with a positive reputation for preparing ministers for our church. She faced changing times and changing circumstances, as all of us who look back over that period know about our church. She has worked assiduously and successfully to take the college to new heights of accomplishment. These years have been fruitful, productive, and rewarding for her and for Knox. As principal, Dr. Gordon has faced many challenges over this time. With the support of the Board of Governors, the faculty, and staff, she has responded successfully to 2 ATS accreditation visits. She has strengthened the college as an academic institution through her appointment of first-rate professors, and is still doing so with the appointment this past month of 2 new professors who will start in July. Through the modernization of the Cavan Library and the addition of new degree programs such as a Master of Pastoral Studies. At the same time, she has attended to the maintenance and renovation of the building, the annual preparation of a balanced budget, and the installation of smart classrooms. She has built solid partnerships in Korea, Taiwan, and Cuba. More than that, she has forged good friendships with these same partners, these brothers and sisters of ours in Christ. She has provided leadership within the Association of Theological Schools in the United States and Canada, most recently as its president. In addition, and greatly to her delight, she has taught and guided dozens of students through their programs and supervised graduate students through their theses. That's a lot of accomplishment, but it is only the tip of the iceberg. She has done so much more. The Reverend Dr. Dan Aylshire, the Executive Director of the Association of Theological Schools, remarked, Dr. Gordon, in addition to her exemplary service to Knox College, has made substantive and significant contributions to the broader community of theological schools. She has served as a member of the ATS Board of Directors and was president of the Association of Theological Schools in the United States and Canada for the 2012-2014 biennium. Few persons have served theological education as broadly and well as Dorcas Gordon. She is a person and a leader of deep faith, with a strong work ethic and an abiding passion for this college. She has a broad vision for theological education, a vision that includes a focus on providing learning experiences that lead to robust personal formation for students, nurturing an inclusive and welcoming culture for them, and ensuring contemporary programs that are grounded in the Presbyterian and Reformed traditions of the college. She will be known for all these accomplishments, but she will be remembered by many of us in this room for her pastoral care and caring way as a friend. Like many of you, I have chatted with her about personal matters and business matters that have concerned the college. I have benefited from her capacity to listen, her compassionate understanding, and her wisdom, grounded in that deep well of faith that she possesses. I now invite you to give her a well-earned, jubilant Knox send-off.
go from this night into the future, secure and unafraid, rejoicing in God's goodness and trusting in God's word. And as you go, may the grace of our Lord Jesus Christ, the love of God, and the fellowship that we share in the Holy Spirit be with you this night and always. Amen.